Well, today, the third best team in the AFC, the Pittsburgh Steelers, defeated the Baltimore Ravens in what was kind of a really disappointing game from Lamar Jackson and the Ravens alike. It looked like they were not the same Ravens team that they had been at any point throughout this year. And I don't know if it was just the Steelers defense that's just so good. I don't know what it was, but it was a terrific win for the Steelers. They needed this. They're bumping up. We just talked about it last segment. They're bumping up that seeding in the AFC. They're the third seed right now. So there's a chance that at the 3 weeks from now, we're looking over our shoulder and seeing the Steelers ahead of either the Bills or the Chiefs. Now, not super likely, but it's possible. So Tristan, my question to you is, do you think that the Steelers are good enough to make a real Super Bowl run?
I'm going to say yes. I think that the Steelers are a legit Super Bowl contender. Just without me giving my reasoning, do you agree or disagree?
I agree.
The offense isn't great. I know that, but the defense is truly spectacular. I made this chart just to compare. Points a game, offense 12th, defense 2nd. Yards allowed a game versus yards gained a game, 18th for offensively, 8th defensively. Pass yards a game, 26th offensively, obviously not their strong suit, 19th defensively, that's their weak spot in both categories. Rush yards a game, 8th offensively, and 4th defensively. They are top 10 in 3 of the defensive categories and, not terrible in 2 of the offensive categories. So I feel like the defense is good enough to overcome the offense because I don't think the offense is as bad as the stats make it out to be. Russell Wilson is effective. Yes, he was bad today, but so was Lamar Jackson. This was one of those divisional games, gets ugly. Okay, whatever, defensive game. Russell Wilson's ability to throw the deep ball, the 50-50 ball to Pickens has changed this offense. Put on top of that, Najee Harris is having a borderline career year right now. I know he's had 1,000 yards every year, but he looks the best he's ever looked in the NFL just based on the eye test, in my opinion. I think this is a team that with this defense, with Mike Tomlin, we've seen what Tomlin's been able to do year in and year out with me and you playing quarterback. So now say what you want about Russell Wilson, but you've got him starting. It is serviceable. Plus you have Justin Fields there if you need to, input that aspect, the running into the quarterback position. On top of that, you're having a similar thing in the NFL as you are with college. I don't think there's a dominant team this year. I really don't. Kansas City has a lot of weaknesses. Buffalo, at times they look dominant, but at times they look like they could get, they got blown out by the Texans. So no team has really taken the mantle. Some people thought the Ravens did. We'll get into them in a minute. And Pittsburgh handled them, and they look terrible. Since it's just so wide open, and Pittsburgh has put themselves in a position where they can possibly get a 1 seed, it's feasible, although unlikely because they've got a lot of tough games left. I think they're a Super Bowl contender. Will they win it? I wouldn't bet my money on it, but it would not surprise me if this team ended up in the AFC Championship game. It just wouldn't.
Yeah, to me, this game really came down to playmakers on both sides of the ball. The fact was that the Ravens had no playmakers step up today. I mean, Derrick Henry was held to under 100 yards.
Yes.
He pretty much had the same stats as Najee Harris today, minus a touchdown for Henry. Lamar Jackson didn't step up. Zay Flowers missed some throws that were right in his chest. Defensively, they didn't step up. When you look at the Pittsburgh side of the ball, you have guys like Najee, which whether you want to admit it or not, like you said, he's having a career year. He's consistent. He's one of the most consistent running backs in all of football right now. He's running hard. Like you said, Wilson is serviceable.
Do you think the way they're playing, though, doing that defensive style, do you think it's sustainable into late the season? Because I kind of think, and I know you'll agree with me here, is like once you get into January and playing cold weather games, playing defense and running the ball is usually what wins championships. And I think Russell Wilson is still good enough in this offense to do what he needs to do for them to win playoff games.
Look, when you got Patrick Queen making 10 tackles today, the defense is good enough to hold up against any football team right now. Yeah. Like you said, the deficiency is all the offensive side of the ball. If they want to go the long stretch, and the reason why I don't think that they could get the 1 seed away from Buffalo or Kansas City right now is because the offensive deficiencies. It's these guys, like I know Pickens is coming into his best year, and he's pretty much unlocked a new level of football play.
Right. First time he's had a competent quarterback.
Right. And I don't think that this team offensively is good enough to have the longevity to sustain a top seed, the first seed in the AFC. Do I think they could finish third? Absolutely.
Here's what I just want to throw at you. I know these are maybe not excellent teams. Take away this game against the Ravens where they scored 18. Their past few games, Commanders, they scored 28. Giants, they scored 26. Jets, they scored 37. Raiders, they scored 32. And then you had the Cowboys game where they scored 17 earlier in the year. But, I mean, they're getting close to 30 points the past 4 weeks in a row up until this Ravens game, which is a divisional game. Ravens have typically had a bad defense. So that's why, even though those were against some subpar defenses, I understand that. It just feels like the defense can keep them in any game. And you never know when that 50-50 ball to Pickens is coming over the top to get you for a touchdown. Because if Russell Wilson puts it in the same zip code as Pickens, it's a touchdown.
Out of the 7 games left on their schedule, how many of those do you think are divisional matchups?
5 or 6.
5.
I knew they were all backloaded. So
that's the scary part for the Steelers for me.
But they've done what they needed to do and build up the equity beforehand. Because we said, remember the preseason, we talked about it and we said, hey, they got all their division games late, so they're screwed unless they, end up with 7 or 8 wins before week 11. They've done that part.
Yeah, they could afford to lose a couple of games. But with having 5 divisional matchups, like how many would you be, as a Steelers fan and then also as like a betting man, how many of those games would you be okay with losing and still feel confident in the Steelers making a good playoff run?
I think you could lose 2 for sure. Are we talking about the divisional games or the total games left?
The divisional games.
Divisional games, you could lose 2 because right now you have a 2-game lead on Baltimore.
Yeah.
And you've won 5 in a row. Baltimore seems to be kind of more of a roller coaster. So you've got a 2-game lead on Baltimore plus the head-to-head. I know you have to play them again, but assuming they just split with the Browns, split with the Bengals, and then even if they lose the Ravens game, even if that was 3, I think they'll be okay. The scary part too, though, the non-divisional games, Chiefs-Eagles.
Yeah, they
do not get a break the rest of the season.
No, they don't. But I will say up to this point, the 2 losses from the Steelers, which would be Dallas and the Colts, are better than the 2 losses from the Ravens. So the Ravens have lost to the Raiders, the Chiefs, and now the Steelers. So and the Browns. I forgot they lost against the Browns too.
Yeah, so exactly.
The Ravens are a 4-loss team now.
Right.
Where we thought the Ravens would be is where the Steelers are right now.
Correct. Like the Steelers are in the driver's the Steelers in the driver's seat to win the division, as long as they don't collapse, which they could because they got a lot of good teams. But
as far as NFL as a picture, or the AFC as a whole picture, is this the biggest surprise in any single division that you would be that you were expecting? Like, would this be the Steelers finishing atop this division way above the Ravens, and the Ravens maybe even dropping down, below the Bengals by the time the end of the season comes? Who knows?
Yes.
Like, would this be the biggest surprise?
Absolutely. I thought they would make the playoffs because they always do, but I thought they would, and I've said this multiple times, I thought they would do what they always do, barely squeak in with 10 wins, get beaten the first game. They are one of the better teams in the AFC because of the defense, and they just, when you have the great defense you always do, and then you just inject competent quarterback play on most days, I know Russ was bad today, but I mean, that can take you a long way, especially when there's not an elite team.